Hello, everybody. Scott Golden here with the Mid South Wrestling Review for the 19th of December 1981. And we have just started the series. Come join us for other series as well, as we've got nearly 800 audios available from all different eras. Superstars of wrestling and world class are our most prominent series, but we do the modern stuff as well, and eventually hoping to have this up to 15, 20,000 audios across all areas. And this is a side project that eventually I hope to monetize to be able to start my own independent wrestling company. So, post-COVID, of course. Anyway, December 19th, 1981 is on tap for this moment, and hopefully you enjoy this series as much as I enjoy doing it. And Tom Ernesto Jr. and Brian Blair are here. Brian Blair, of course, member of the Killer Bees in the World Wrestling Federation. That's where most people probably know Brian from. But he also was a big deal in Mid-South and Florida and other places. And I can see why. I actually enjoyed Brian a great deal in his WWF run as a single before going into more intense stuff. I love these matches because they're more competitive than average, and they're actually mostly mat based. Into the armbar goes Blair pretty quickly. Ernesto, kind of challenging a little bit. Of course, his father, one half of the Assassins, pushed off on Blair pretty quickly, pretty early. Blair using his collegiate wrestling stylings, hammerlocks, drop toe holds, and the like pretty easily. Uses a lot of ride time, shoots a half, and gets pinfall attempts. This particular episode, I believe, is the Ted DiBiase commentary episode, and tries to shoot the half. There's actually a legitimate struggle in that process, which I enjoyed those when they happen, just because I have always preferred wrestling to look more competitive than story. I enjoy story, but if it's not competitive matches, then I really don't enjoy watching it. Arm drags and the like by Blair as well. Blair really is, I guess you'd say, an upper mid Carter at this point in 81. The end of 81, going into 82. Of course, he's in the WWF by 84. Big back body drop, and Ernesto has some trouble getting him over with that particular maneuver, or at least it's made to look like enough of a struggle that it's there. Blair hits a backdrop of his own, goes to the second rope, hits a elbow to the top of the skull, and away we go. Blair does pick up his second consecutive victory off of a suplex that almost looks like a hanging brainbuster for a minute. As again, one thing I really like about Mid-South level wrestlers, even the first 2 weeks in watching this, the first time I've watched Mid-South stuff in 20 years. But anyway, one thing I really like is that they make strength related holds look like something. Not a fan of the fact that the figure four is used to gain the victory for Blair, but the reason I'm not a fan is because Orndorff uses it, DiBiase uses it, and now Blair's using it too. I think it's an overused move at this point. The return after a 6-month injury of Paul Ellering is here. Ellering says he's up for the challenge to haggle with the Persian clubs of the Iron Sheik. He is fond of saying, dig it. He is bleach blonde, looking really good in kind of a weird cut off sweater and yellow tights. We don't know why he is off for 6 months. We know it's an injury, but we don't really know why. He is talking about being a ladies' man. It actually reminds me a little bit of Austin Idol in this promo. If you've never seen him in this role as a wrestler. Might be worth checking out. Anyway, Precious Paul Ellering, a big deal. Looks like $1 million and really looks good here. Anyway, we move to him and Don Serrano. Obviously, bring him back. He's going to do some big stuff. Lots of power moves, kind of reminiscent of a Billy Graham type physique at the time. I might actually do some research to figure out why Paul was out for 6 months because I'm actually intrigued. Serrano allowed to do a cartwheel and kind of gets there. Short clothesline attempted, and some like a knee to the midsection by Paul Ellering. Ellering only has a couple of minutes worth of match here, 3 or 4 minutes. Gets a neck breaker and a victory out of it, and that is good enough to tie him up. Of course, he goes on to manage the. Pretty sure he goes on to manage the Road Warriors. I don't know if it's that Paul Ellering or not. Precious Paul, I would assume so. If so, he is majorly different looking than even a few years later as a manager, dyeing the hair and less intense body look there. But we move into another match, and that's one thing I really like about Mid South is they are very match focused. Also, the angles they do are, not overdone. Mike Boyce and the Junkyard Dog. Junkyard Dog is your Louisiana heavyweight champion. Picked up the belt, I believe they said, on December 7th. Junkyard Dog at the time, probably one of, if not the biggest babyface in the area, and that continues till he leaves in 84-ish, 85. Junkyard Dog supposedly gets to be huge. Again, I haven't watched this stuff in 20 years, so my memory of the dog at the time will evolve with watching these episodes and doing this for you guys. But anyway, the Junkyard Dog, really a basic guy, much more charisma than in-ring talent per se. But I mean, punches, kicks, and that big thump power slam. I don't know how soft the Mid-South rings are. I do know that him bouncing, I mean literally bouncing off the ring when he hits the power slam is a pretty impressive thing. And he does hit it here. He also does get some basic ride time, wrestling time, whatever have you. So that's there. But obviously, Junkyard Dog hits the thump and a win, and that is all that we need in that particular deal. So he moves on with a victory in tow. Obviously, another enhancement style match, as is to be expected here. We move to a tag team match up next, and the tag team match of the moment is Bob Orton Jr. and Paul Orndorff versus The Monk and Carlos Zapata. Zapata, if you've followed our World Class series that is 340 episodes or so long, might be worth checking out if you haven't. But Zapata is a major part of that as an enhancement talent / I guess one step above enhancement. Orndorff and Orton, a pretty big deal as a team. Orndorff also involved with Ted DiBiase feuding over the North American title. Good tag-offs by Orton and Orndorff. And I assume Mike George and the Junkyard Dog, who are the tag team champions at the time, are, I guess, going to have matches with them at a point. Big body slam by Orton. Orton's one of the guys. Bob Orton is a guy that I really do enjoy, and I grow to enjoy him the more I watch him. Knee to the sternum area by Orton that looks pretty vicious, but also Orton slows things down wherever he can. Doesn't waste an abundance of energy in there. Cranks on a reverse chin lock, among other things, and basically goes to that as a, hold. And then you see kicks by Orndorff. Orndorff, again, known for being a Florida State football player and, kind of has a little bit of edge to him. Orton, obviously, second generation. His son, Randy Orton, 20 years later, third generation. Would be interesting if we get a fourth generation out of it. But some tags. And I mean, the match is somewhat competitive, which is kind of surprising, at least to me, in that, having a competitive match with relative enhancement talents, or at least what I perceive to be enhancement talents. Again, I'm not familiar with earlier 81. Maybe they're more than that. But it's competitive enough. They get about maybe 10 minutes out of it, something like that. Nah, less than that. But finally, Orton and Orndorff managed to get their victory. Bob Roop up next. Bob Roop facing Mike George. Mike George, again, an enhancement talent prominently other places. Bob Roop has done some booking, also pretty prominent in this area. Big, stocky guy. Reminds me almost of Chris Taylor of the AWA around the same time period. Big guy. Again with the ride time, even Mike George picking up some ride time here. One thing I like about Mid South, and the reason it makes the grade as one of my favorite territories, is there's a lot of wrestling to it, a lot of catch style to it. And if you're watching this from the standpoint of athletic ability and competition, you can see that there. Full Nelson by Roop, who manages to take his man and send him into the buckle, and then that is reversed. Pretty cool there, but roll up by George. George manages to almost get a victory, but doesn't quite get it there. And both guys come up, and this is another really simple thing, especially for those who are, I guess what I'd say a little more focused. When you come up stunned. You come up wondering what you're going to do next. You don't pop right up into another spot, and that's why, ladies and guys, today, honestly, nobody takes wrestling seriously as, gee, that hurts. I understand, hey, we all know finishes are predetermined, yada, yada, but if you can make people think that something hurts, you make them pause for a second. And guys come out of holds and reversals here in the early 80s as, gee, that did he catch him, was a thought. And I think if that was a thought in today's wrestling, I think they'd sell more tickets. I think they'd make more money. I think they'd have a wider fan base. When you take away the illusion that something hurts, you take away the illusion that it's a competition, and you end up killing the business. Anyway, ride down by Roop here, making him carry his weight, which is smart. Roop and Orndorff have an alliance that I haven't figured out yet. We learn about that, I believe, in the next episode. The final episode of the year is kind of a review, so my review of it is going to be extremely not very helpful because I don't know enough about that time period. But George finally does a little bit of cheating, rakes the eyes across the ropes, and kind of goes at it. Attempted Russian leg sweep, but a block of the Russian leg sweep. Simple move. Block of it, easy. Roop ends up holding on to the middle rope and gets that block off. And then we see an attempted body slam, attempted O'Connor roll up, and drop kick right under the chin. Mike George still looks like $1,000,000, obviously being one half of the tag team champion team. He should. Kick to the outside, and then we kind of go with Roop coming back in, ducks out of the way. George hits the post, and Roop gets back in the ring. I don't know if I believe this actually goes on to be a count-out victory for Bob Roop, and or nope, he actually does get back in. but what's interesting there is, I mean, something as simple as hitting the post. It's a lot of guys just, oh, it's a spot. He hit the post, and 15 seconds later they're on to another move. This, Mike George is holding on to it and holding on to the shoulder that hit the post, and then we see a running high knee, knocks down the opponent, and Bob Roop gets a victory there, all feeding off the post shot and kind of going from there. Next matchup, Mike Bond, who we've seen in World Class again. Again, this time against Ed Wiskowski. Ed Wiskowski, of course, as mentioned before, Colonel De Beers at later points. Wiskowski manages to be dominant again here, using some power stuff, kicks, punches, and the like. He really stays on his opponent, really does quite a bit of heel stuff. Very short segment, probably about 2 or 3 minutes, but that's all that's needed. You've got a heel that's dominant, and you don't need to make a match 50-50. You don't need to belabor the point. Big body slam by Wiskowski, hits a diving knee into the spine, and eventually, in a few seconds, manages to get a victory. Then we see the Paul Ellering doing the Persian clubs as he agreed to do before. Ellering manages to swing the clubs 50 times, at which point the agreement was that the Sheik would have to do whatever Ellering can do. Sheik would have to double it, which would have been 100 times. Sheik, though, says he's got an enhancement match, or actually Akbar says for Sheik, he's got an enhancement match, and he's got to focus on that. And Sheik does, goes up against Frank Monty. Punch, kick, stomping in the corner, use of the curled-toed boots, and a back suplex, and the Sheik gets a victory. We go off of the air with Akbar complaining that Sheik has just had that match, etc. and so forth, and that's a pretty big deal. So anyway, we leave with a cliffhanger. Will the Sheik pay out on his agreement, and can he do the clubs 100 times? So that's the cliffhanger leading into next week. We'll be back with more right after this.